King's guard presses the emergency buzzer for serious help. The morning sun had barely risen over the palace walls when guard Captain Adrian arrived at his post. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of flowers from the royal gardens. The palace, a massive structure of stone and gold, glimmered under the soft sunlight. Its towers reached high into the sky, casting long shadows across the courtyards below. Adrian, a tall man with sharp eyes and a calm demeanor, adjusted his uniform, making sure every button was perfectly aligned. His boots shined, reflecting the sunlight like mirrors, and his sword hung neatly at his side. Every morning he repeated this ritual without fail. Discipline, he believed, was the backbone of safety. The palace was already coming alive. Servants hurried along the corridors, carrying trays of food and baskets filled with fresh linens. Couriers arrived with important messages, and merchants set up stalls outside the gates, selling fruits, flowers, and other goods to visitors and staff. Despite the busy atmosphere, Adrian's focus never wavered. He knew that his job was more than just standing guard. Every visitor, every package, and every sound could hold a potential threat. Over the years, he had learned to trust his instincts. Today, something in the back of his mind whispered that he needed to be especially vigilant. Adrian's fellow guards moved in perfect formation, marching with synchronized steps that echoed through the palace grounds. The sound was rhythmic, almost hypnotic, a sign that the day's routine had begun. He watched them carefully, noting the way they held their weapons, the sharpness in their eyes, and the alertness in their posture. Even a small mistake could have serious consequences. The royal family depended on them, and Adrian felt a deep sense of responsibility. He had trained with these men for years. They were not just colleagues, they were brothers in arms. The morning passed quietly, almost eerily so. Guests were escorted in and out, deliveries made, and meetings held. Yet Adrian noticed small things that made him uneasy. A delivery van had arrived earlier than usual, its driver glancing around nervously before presenting a stack of boxes to the palace staff. A maid carrying a basket of laundry seemed distracted, as if she was trying to hide something under her shawl. Even the birds in the courtyard behaved strangely, fluttering in unusual patterns as if warning of something unseen. Adrian didn't jump to conclusions, but he made mental notes of every detail. Experience had taught him that danger often arrived in the smallest, most unnoticed forms. He decided to walk the length of the East Corridor, a part of the palace that connected the main entrance to the royal living quarters. The corridor was grand, with high ceilings painted with intricate designs of gold and blue. Chandeliers hung from above, sparkling in the sunlight that poured through tall windows. Every step Adrian took echoed softly, a reminder of the silence that often accompanied moments before a crisis. As he walked, he observed the staff and visitors, noting faces, movements, and behaviors. Most were ordinary, but a few caught his attention. A man in a plain suit lingered too long near the library entrance, and a young woman carrying a stack of papers kept glancing over her shoulder as if afraid someone was watching. These observations, though subtle, set Adrian's mind on alert. Adrian returned to his post just as the palace bell rang, signaling the start of official business. The king would soon appear in the main hall to receive courtiers and ambassadors. Adrian straightened his posture, his hands resting lightly on the hilt of his sword. Today, as always, he felt the weight of responsibility. Protecting the royal family was not just a duty, it was an honor. He took a deep breath, allowing the morning air to fill his lungs, calming his nerves while sharpening his senses. Every detail mattered. Every sound, every shadow, every movement could be important. Around midday, the tension in the palace subtly increased. Couriers moved faster, staff whispered in hushed tones, and even the guards seemed slightly more attentive. Adrian noticed a group of children from the palace school playing near the fountain, their laughter echoing through the courtyard. Their innocence was a comforting contrast to the tension he felt. He smiled briefly, reminding himself that his job was to protect this peace, no matter what challenges might arise. But the uneasy feeling in his chest persisted. There was something today, something he couldn't yet put into words. Adrian decided to check the security logs for the morning, reviewing entries for deliveries, visitors, and staff movements. The system showed everything as normal, yet he knew that not all threats could be predicted or recorded. Sometimes, intuition mattered more than technology. He glanced out toward the gates again, noticing the delivery van that had arrived earlier. It had not left yet. The driver was pacing nearby, occasionally looking toward the palace walls as if measuring them. Adrian's heart rate increased slightly. While he had no proof of wrongdoing, his instincts screamed caution. He decided to keep a close eye on the van, knowing that patience was key in preventing unnecessary panic. Hours passed slowly, the palace continuing its rhythm of controlled chaos. Meetings were held, messages delivered, and the king greeted visiting dignitaries with his usual grace. Yet Adrian remained vigilant, his eyes scanning every corner, his ears attuned to every sound. He spoke little, observing more than he interacted, and making mental notes of every irregularity. By now, a small crowd had gathered near the main entrance, curious visitors wanting to catch a glimpse of palace life. Adrian managed them carefully, allowing access while maintaining strict security. It was a delicate balance, one that required discipline, focus, and awareness. As the afternoon approached, Adrian felt a shift in the atmosphere. The air seemed heavier, the shadows longer, and the sunlight harsher against the stone walls. Something had changed, though he could not yet identify what. He noticed a staff member moving unusually fast, her face pale, her hands shaking slightly as she carried a stack of documents toward the offices. The same man who had lingered near the library was now closer to the king's quarters, speaking quietly into a phone. Adrian's instincts told him that this was no coincidence. He made a decision to remain alert and ready. Patience and observation would guide his next actions. Adrian walked slowly toward the West Wing, an area that required extra clearance due to its proximity to the private royal chambers. The hallway was quiet, the only sounds being the soft steps of guards and the occasional creak of the wooden floors. He noticed that some doors were slightly ajar, something unusual in a place where strict protocol was the rule. He paused at each doorway, listening carefully and observing the room beyond. Nothing seemed overtly threatening yet, but his unease deepened. Every detail mattered, every minor irregularity could signal a larger problem. His training taught him that vigilance was not optional, it was essential. By late afternoon, Adrian had returned to his post, mentally reviewing every observation of the day. The delivery van had finally left, the staff member had vanished into the offices, and the man near the library was gone. Yet the feeling of unease lingered. He could not shake the thought that something important was about to happen, something that required immediate attention. As the sun began to dip behind the palace towers, casting long, golden rays across the courtyard, Adrian straightened once more. He adjusted his gloves, checked his sword, and surveyed the entire scene with unwavering focus. He knew that being ready, even when nothing seemed wrong, was the true test of a guard. And today he felt that test was near. As the afternoon progressed, Adrian felt his unease growing stronger. The palace seemed calm on the surface, but he could sense that something was out of place. He walked slowly along the marble corridors, his boots making soft echoes that mixed with the distant murmur of staff and visitors. Every door, every shadow, every movement of people passing by was carefully observed. Adrian had learned over the years that danger often hid behind ordinary appearances, and today his instincts told him to watch closely. He passed by the main entrance, where visitors still came and went. Most of them were ordinary people curious about the palace or couriers delivering messages. But Adrian noticed a man who had appeared earlier near the library entrance. He was standing in the crowd again, this time leaning against a wall, holding a small device in his hand. He appeared casual, but the careful way he scanned the surroundings caught Adrian's attention. Something about the man did not feel right. Adrian tightened his grip on his sword's hilt, deciding that he would follow the man discreetly to see what he was up to. As Adrian moved through the hallways, he made sure to remain calm, blending in with the other guards who were performing their routine checks. He approached the West Wing, an area that housed private offices and rooms for the royal family's closest advisors. Access was restricted, and only authorized staff could enter. Adrian noticed the maintenance worker from the morning, the one who had asked for early access to the West Wing. The man was now walking briskly toward one of the restricted doors, carrying a toolbox. His movements were hurried and slightly nervous, and he kept glancing over his shoulder as if afraid someone was watching. Adrian's instincts flared again. Something was not right. He decided to follow the maintenance worker at a safe distance, making sure not to alert him. Adrian knew that a direct confrontation at this point could be risky. Observation and careful timing were crucial. He watched as the worker reached the door and began to fiddle with the lock. His hands moved quickly, almost as if he knew exactly what he was doing. Adrian took out his small notebook and began noting down every detail: the worker's actions, the time, the location, and any unusual behavior. He had been trained to record everything that could be useful later, both for immediate response and for investigation if needed. While Adrian was focused on the worker, he did not lose sight of the man near the library. The man had moved closer to the private quarters, keeping to the shadows and avoiding the main corridors. He held the small device tightly and appeared to be communicating with someone, though Adrian could not hear what was being said. The coordination between the two men suggested a plan, something carefully thought out. Adrian felt a surge of responsibility. He knew that every second counted in situations like this. A small mistake could allow a breach, and the safety of the royal family could be at risk. Adrian activated his communication device, speaking quietly to his lieutenant. "I have eyes on two suspicious individuals near the West Wing and the library area. I need backup to monitor the West Wing discreetly. The man near the library seems connected. Stay alert." His voice was calm but firm, carrying the authority of someone used to making quick decisions. Within moments, his message was acknowledged, and 2 additional guards were dispatched to support him, moving silently so as not to alert the suspects. The maintenance worker had now begun to tamper with the security panel next to the restricted door. Adrian could see that he was attempting to bypass the locking mechanism. The worker's movements were precise, almost practiced. Adrian's heart rate increased slightly, but he maintained his calm exterior. He stepped closer, careful not to make a sound that would reveal his presence. Every instinct in his body was on high alert. This was the moment when experience mattered most. Years of training, countless hours of drills, and a deep understanding of human behavior all came together. At the same time, the man near the library was moving toward the corridor that led directly to the king's private chambers. Adrian observed from a distance, noting how the man avoided the main guards, line of sight, sticking to shadows and corners. Adrian realized that if these 2 individuals managed to reach their objectives, the consequences could be severe. He considered his options carefully, weighing the need to act quickly against the importance of keeping the palace secure. Every decision mattered, and hesitation could allow the plan to succeed. Adrian signaled to the backup guards to take their positions quietly. One moved to cover the corridor near the West Wing, while another positioned near the entrance to intercept anyone attempting to exit quickly. Adrian remained near the maintenance worker, ready to act if the man made any sudden moves. He knew that confrontation might be inevitable, but careful coordination could prevent unnecessary chaos. His mind raced through every possible scenario, but he maintained outward calm, a crucial skill for someone in his position. Minutes passed, each feeling longer than the last. The maintenance worker finally managed to bypass the lock, opening the door slightly and peeking inside. Adrian's instincts screamed that this was the critical moment. He took a deep breath, steadying his nerves, and prepared to intervene. At the same time, he continued to watch the man near the library, who had now started moving faster, as if realizing that his time was running out. Adrian understood that the situation was delicate. One wrong move could trigger panic or allow the suspects to escape. Suddenly, the maintenance worker attempted to enter the restricted area. Adrian stepped forward quickly, using a firm but controlled voice. "Stop right there. You are not authorized to enter this area." The man froze, his hands hovering near the doorframe. Adrian kept his stance strong, signaling the backup guards to be ready. The element of surprise was crucial. The worker looked around, realizing that he had been spotted, and hesitated. His eyes darted nervously toward the corridor, and then he slowly lowered his hands, understanding that his actions had been noticed. At the same time, the man near the library saw the backup guards positioning themselves and appeared frustrated. He muttered something under his breath and began retreating toward the exit. Adrian quickly signaled to another guard to follow discreetly while he continued to monitor the West Wing. Coordination was key, and everyone knew their role. Within moments, the palace seemed to return to its routine rhythm, though the tension in Adrian's mind remained. He had prevented an immediate breach, but he knew that vigilance could not stop. Adrian escorted the maintenance worker to a secure area for questioning. The man was nervous, avoiding eye contact and muttering excuses. Adrian observed every detail, the way the man's hands trembled, the way he fidgeted, and the inconsistencies in his explanations. This information could be vital later, both for understanding the intent and for preventing future incidents. While other guards secured the West Wing, Adrian's attention returned to the palace's main corridors. He scanned the crowd, the staff, and the visitors, making sure that no one else posed a threat. By the late afternoon, the palace seemed calm again, but Adrian knew better than to relax completely. His instincts had been right throughout the day. There were people with intentions that could have caused serious problems. The experience had reminded him of the importance of patience, careful observation, and quick thinking. He felt a quiet sense of satisfaction for having prevented a possible incident, but he also knew that his responsibility was far from over. The palace was a place of constant activity, and the safety of everyone inside depended on his vigilance. As the sun began to set, casting warm orange light across the palace walls, Adrian took a moment to reflect. Today had been a reminder that even the smallest irregularities could indicate something larger. The delivery van, the nervous staff member, and the suspicious man near the library, all had been signs that required attention. Adrian felt a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that his careful observation and decisive action had made a difference. He returned to his post, standing tall as the shadows lengthened. The courtyard was quieter now, with visitors departing and staff finishing their tasks. Yet Adrian remained alert, his eyes scanning every corner, ready to respond to any new situation. He understood that being a guard was not just about following rules. It was about intuition, courage, and the willingness to act when others might hesitate. And today, those qualities had kept the palace safe. By mid-afternoon, the palace seemed calm to everyone except Adrian. He had spent hours observing every detail, every movement, and every visitor, and something still didn't feel right. The earlier incidents, the suspicious maintenance worker, the nervous staff member, and the man lurking near the library, were pieces of a puzzle that Adrian could not yet see completely. His instincts, honed over years of guarding the palace, were screaming at him that the situation was more serious than it appeared. Adrian walked slowly along the east corridor, his eyes sharp and his senses alert. The corridor was quieter now than it had been earlier, the echo of his boots the only sound in the long, ornate hall. Sunlight filtered through tall windows, casting stripes of light across the marble floor. Normally, this would have been a peaceful sight, almost calming, but today it seemed to highlight every shadow, every movement, every detail that could be a threat. Adrian had learned to trust these feelings. He had learned that when his instincts were heightened, it often meant danger was near. He turned the corner toward the West Wing, where he had followed the maintenance worker earlier. The doors were still locked, the area seemingly secure. But Adrian knew better than to assume safety. He paused near the corridor entrance, carefully scanning every detail. The light from the windows reflected off the polished floors, creating small glimmers in the shadows. At first glance, it seemed normal, but Adrian noticed something unusual. A small shadow near one of the service doors, moving slightly as if someone was trying to remain hidden. Adrian's heart rate increased, but he maintained his calm exterior. He signaled silently to the two backup guards stationed nearby, using a subtle hand gesture to direct their attention. They understood immediately. Quietly, they moved into position, covering entrances and exits. Every movement was calculated. Adrian knew that any loud or sudden action could trigger panic or alert a potential intruder. He focused on observation, patience, and timing, ready to act if necessary. The shadow moved again, and this time Adrian could see more clearly. It was the maintenance worker, but he was not alone. Another figure had joined him, a man in plain clothes who carried a small, unusual device in his hands. They were speaking quietly, their voices almost a whisper, yet their tension was visible. Adrian's instincts told him that this was no ordinary maintenance activity. He had to act, but he also knew that confronting them directly could be risky. The safety of the royal family, the staff, and the guards depended on careful action. Adrian took a deep breath and made a quick decision. He reached for the emergency communication device on his uniform. Pressing it would alert the palace security team and local authorities immediately. This was a serious step, one rarely taken, and it meant that the situation had escalated beyond routine security checks. Adrian's fingers hovered over the button for a moment, feeling the weight of responsibility. He reminded himself that hesitation could be dangerous. The palace depended on his judgment, and he could not afford to ignore his instincts. With a firm press, Adrian activated the emergency buzzer. The sound was loud and unmistakable, echoing through the marble corridors and alerting everyone in the palace. Alarms flashed in strategic locations, signaling a security breach and calling for immediate assistance. Staff and guards responded instantly, moving with precision and urgency. The sudden alert caused a ripple of tension to spread through the palace. Visitors were guided to safe areas, and every entrance and exit was secured. Adrian stood his ground, observing the maintenance worker and the man with the device, knowing that their reactions would reveal their intentions. The maintenance worker froze, clearly startled by the alarm. His companion looked around nervously, realizing that the situation had changed dramatically. Adrian's eyes were fixed on them, noting every subtle movement. The way the man's hands trembled, the quick glances exchanged between the two, and the hesitant steps backward. These details mattered. They revealed uncertainty and fear, which meant that the intruders had been caught off guard. Adrian's decision to activate the buzzer had shifted the balance in favor of the palace. Within minutes, additional security personnel arrived. They moved silently but quickly, taking positions around the West Wing. Officers coordinated with hand signals and quiet whispers, demonstrating training and discipline. Adrian briefed them quickly, pointing out the positions of the two intruders and any potential escape routes. The backup guards he had positioned earlier now joined the operation, creating a controlled perimeter. Every step was precise, designed to ensure that no one could enter or exit without being detected. The palace, once calm and orderly, was now a scene of controlled urgency. Adrian observed the maintenance worker as he hesitated near the door. It was clear that he had planned something, but the sudden alarm had disrupted those plans. The man with the device looked around, trying to find a way out, but the security team had already anticipated possible exits. Adrian could see the realization in their eyes. They had underestimated the palace's preparedness and the vigilance of its guards. Every second counted now, and Adrian's training guided his actions. He remained calm, focused, and ready to respond to any sudden moves. The situation continued to escalate as the two intruders began to retreat toward a corner of the hallway, but security personnel moved efficiently to block their path. Adrian approached steadily, using his voice to assert control. "You are not authorized to be here. Remain where you are and do not attempt to move." His tone was calm but firm, conveying authority and confidence. The intruders paused, clearly aware that resistance would be futile. Adrian's presence, combined with the rapid response of the security team, had created an environment where any aggressive action could only end badly for them. While this was happening, Adrian continued to monitor the surrounding areas. The man who had been near the library earlier was spotted attempting to move toward the main corridors. Adrian quickly signaled a nearby guard to intercept him. The guard moved silently but swiftly, guiding the man away from sensitive areas and toward a secure holding location. Coordination, observation, and rapid decision-making were all critical at this moment. Adrian's instincts, combined with training and experience, ensured that every threat was managed efficiently and safely. As the intruders were secured, Adrian walked along the corridor, checking every corner for overlooked threats. The palace was gradually returning to a state of calm, though tension still lingered in the air. Staff and visitors were reassured, guided back to safe areas, and informed that the situation was under control. Adrian communicated continuously with his team, making sure that every action was coordinated and that no detail was missed. He knew that even small mistakes could have consequences. Vigilance was key, and he refused to relax until the area was completely secure. Adrian felt a quiet satisfaction as he observed the resolution of the incident. His quick thinking, careful observation, and decisive action had prevented a potential security breach. He had trusted his instincts and followed protocol, and the result was a safe outcome for everyone in the palace. Yet he also knew that the day was not over. The intruders' motives were still unknown, and further investigation would be necessary to ensure that no additional threats remained. As the sun began to lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the corridors, Adrian returned to his post. The palace had regained its calm, but he remained alert, scanning every corner, every shadow, and every person. The day had been a reminder of the unpredictable nature of security and the importance of vigilance, preparation, and decisive action. Adrian understood that moments of calm could be deceptive, and that his responsibility as a guard extended beyond what was visible. He reflected briefly on the events, realizing that his decision to press the emergency buzzer had been crucial. It had allowed the palace to respond quickly, coordinate personnel effectively, and prevent the intruders from reaching their objectives. The training, experience, and instincts that had guided him throughout the day had proven invaluable. Adrian knew that being a guard was not only about standing watch. It was about anticipating danger, acting decisively, and ensuring the safety of everyone under his care. As evening approached, Adrian felt a sense of fulfillment. The immediate threat had been neutralized, the palace was secure, and the staff and visitors could resume their activities without fear. Yet he remained aware that security was an ongoing responsibility. Every shift, every patrol, and every observation mattered. Adrian straightened his posture, adjusted his uniform, and stood tall at his post, ready for whatever the rest of the day might bring. He had faced a critical situation and had acted with courage, intelligence, and professionalism. The palace walls glowed warmly under the setting sun, reflecting the light onto the polished floors of the corridors. Adrian's eyes scanned the entire area once more, ensuring that nothing had been overlooked. Every detail mattered. Every step, every shadow, every sound could indicate something important. The events of the day had reinforced the importance of vigilance and careful observation, lessons that Adrian carried with him always. And so, as the evening settled over the grand palace, Adrian remained alert and steadfast, a silent protector ensuring the safety of all within. The incident with the intruders had been a reminder of the fragile balance between routine and danger, and Adrian knew that his role as a guard required constant attention, unwavering discipline, and the courage to act when the moment demanded it. The moment the emergency buzzer rang, the palace shifted from calm routine to controlled urgency. Guards and security personnel moved quickly but quietly through the corridors, taking up strategic positions and checking every entrance and exit. Adrian remained at his post, his eyes scanning every shadow, every doorway, and every movement. His instincts were sharper than ever, each detail becoming a potential clue in understanding the intruder's plan. The maintenance worker, now aware that the palace had responded, hesitated near the door he had tried to open. The other man, holding the small device, was retreating slightly, glancing around nervously as he tried to find a way out. Both of them were trapped, surrounded by vigilant guards and the awareness that any sudden move could lead to immediate capture. Adrian remained calm, steadying his breathing while coordinating silently with the backup team. Every movement mattered, and timing was crucial. Adrian signaled to one of the guards to approach from a safe angle, guiding the intruders toward the center of the corridor. The man with the device froze, unsure of what to do. Adrian's voice cut through the tense silence. "Stop where you are. Do not attempt to move. We are trained to handle this situation safely. Any resistance will only make things worse for you." The authority in Adrian's tone left no room for argument. The intruders exchanged a glance, a mixture of frustration and fear in their eyes, realizing that their plans had failed. Other security personnel arrived quickly, forming a semicircle around the intruders. Their approach was calculated, ensuring that there were no blind spots for escape. Each guard had a specific role. One would monitor the intruders' hands, another would cover the nearby exit, and a third would keep an eye on the hallway behind them. The palace had been designed with security in mind, but it was the coordination of trained personnel, guided by Adrian's quick thinking, that ensured safety. Every movement was precise, leaving no chance for error. The intruders began to speak, their voices low and hurried. The maintenance worker tried to explain, but Adrian remained focused, allowing no interruption. He watched their expressions carefully, the tension, the hesitation, and the subtle gestures that revealed nervousness. These were not ordinary workers or visitors. They had planned their actions and were now caught off guard. Adrian's observations would be critical for later investigation, providing clues to their intentions and methods. Meanwhile, other guards had secured nearby corridors, preventing anyone else from entering the area. Visitors and staff who were nearby were guided to safe zones, their safety a priority even as the security team focused on neutralizing the intruders. Adrian moved with calm efficiency, giving clear instructions to his team while maintaining oversight of the situation. He knew that chaos could escalate quickly if not managed properly. Patience, coordination, and authority were essential to resolving the incident without harm. The man holding the device shifted slightly, glancing toward a corner as if seeking an escape route. Adrian noticed the movement immediately. He signaled one of the guards to block the path, positioning themselves strategically without alarming the intruders further. The maintenance worker looked frustrated, realizing that every potential exit was now covered. Adrian spoke again, calmly but firmly. "We can handle this safely. Cooperation is in your best interest. Any attempt to escape or resist will only make things worse." His words, combined with the team's precise positioning, left the intruders with no viable options. As the standoff continued, Adrian's mind raced through possible scenarios. The device the man held could have been dangerous, but there was no immediate sign of it being used aggressively. His experience told him to maintain a balance between caution and decisive action. He instructed one guard to slowly approach and inspect the device from a safe distance, while maintaining verbal contact with the intruders. The guard moved carefully, explaining his actions aloud so that the intruders understood the situation was under control and no sudden threats were being posed against them. The intruders remained tense, their hands moving slightly but cautiously. Adrian's calm presence had a stabilizing effect on the scene. He continued to give instructions to his team, making sure everyone remained in position and vigilant. Each guard knew their role and followed it with precision, ensuring that no part of the corridor was left unmonitored. The palace's security system, combined with human vigilance, created a controlled environment where the intruders had no room to maneuver. Minutes passed slowly, each one feeling longer than the last. The intruders shifted slightly, testing the boundaries of the guard perimeter, but every movement was anticipated and countered. Adrian noted every gesture, every glance, and every hesitation, mentally recording them for later reports. His attention to detail ensured that nothing escaped notice. It was a tense, silent battle of observation and positioning, a test of nerves and strategy rather than physical confrontation. Finally, Adrian gave the order for the intruders to be restrained. The guards moved in unison, careful to maintain control and prevent any sudden actions. The maintenance worker was guided away from the door he had attempted to open, and the man with the device was carefully secured. Both were now under control, and the immediate threat had been neutralized. Adrian inspected the device briefly, noting that it was harmless but sophisticated, likely intended for unauthorized access to the palace systems. With the intruders secured, Adrian and the security team began a systematic check of the area. Every room, every corridor, and every entrance near the West Wing was carefully inspected to ensure there were no additional threats. Staff who had been in the vicinity were questioned briefly, and all unusual activity was recorded. Adrian coordinated the entire operation, making sure that nothing was overlooked and that the palace remained safe. His leadership ensured that the process was thorough and efficient. The tension in the palace gradually eased, but Adrian remained vigilant. The incident had demonstrated how quickly a routine day could become a serious security situation. He continued to monitor the West Wing, the corridors, and the entrances, ensuring that no further irregularities occurred. The intruders had been captured, but Adrian knew that investigation and vigilance would continue long after the immediate threat had passed. His attention to detail and careful observation throughout the day had prevented what could have been a major breach. As evening approached, the palace returned to its usual rhythm. Visitors were escorted safely, staff resumed their duties, and the corridors once again echoed with the sounds of routine activity. Adrian took a moment to reflect on the events. The quick response, coordination, and calm decision-making had been crucial in handling the situation effectively. His instincts, combined with his training and experience, had guided every action, ensuring the safety of the royal family, the staff, and the visitors. Adrian's team gathered briefly to debrief and discuss the incident. Notes were recorded, observations were shared, and lessons were identified for future situations. The emergency had highlighted the importance of vigilance, teamwork, and decisive action in maintaining palace security. Adrian acknowledged the efforts of his team, recognizing their discipline and professionalism in handling a tense and potentially dangerous situation. Though the immediate threat was over, Adrian remained aware of the palace's broader security needs. He knew that investigation and preventive measures would continue, and he mentally reviewed the day's events to identify any areas for improvement. His dedication to his duty was unwavering. The experience reinforced the importance of readiness, awareness, and calm under pressure, qualities that had proven essential in protecting the palace. As night fell, the corridors of the palace were quiet, the last rays of sunlight fading behind the towers. Adrian stood at his post, maintaining vigilance even as the day's events came to a close. The intruders had been captured, the palace was secure, and the staff and visitors were safe. Yet Adrian understood that his responsibility did not end when danger was neutralized. Vigilance was continuous, a duty that required constant attention, awareness, and preparedness. He walked slowly through the corridors one last time, checking doors, windows, and entry points. The palace, illuminated by soft lights, felt serene once more, but Adrian's senses remained alert. He reflected on the day's events, the moments of tension, the careful planning, and the decisive actions that had prevented a potential crisis. The experience had tested his skills, instincts, and judgment, and he had met the challenge with calmness, intelligence, and professionalism. Standing at his post, Adrian felt a sense of quiet satisfaction. The crisis had been managed effectively, the intruders apprehended, and the palace restored to safety. Yet he knew that true security required continuous vigilance. Every shift, every patrol, and every observation mattered. Adrian's commitment to his role as a protector was unwavering, and he understood that the safety of everyone in the palace depended on his attention, awareness, and readiness to act at a moment's notice. And so, as night fully settled over the palace, Adrian remained at his post, alert and steady, a guardian of safety and order. The emergency had tested the palace's security and his own abilities, and he had responded with precision and calm. The intruders had been confronted, their plans foiled, and the immediate danger neutralized. Yet Adrian knew that vigilance never ended. Every detail mattered, every observation was important, and every action could make the difference between safety and risk. The palace stood quiet under the stars, its towers reflecting the soft glow of moonlight. Adrian, standing tall at his post, was the silent sentinel ensuring that the palace and its inhabitants remained secure. The day had been a reminder that even in places of beauty and routine, danger could appear suddenly, and it was the readiness, intelligence, and courage of those who guarded it that ensured safety. Adrian's presence, calm yet alert, was a reassurance that the palace was in capable hands. By the time the palace settled into the calm of evening, the immediate threat had been neutralized, but Adrian's mind was still alert. The two intruders had been secured, and the corridors were quiet once more, but there was much to be done before the day could truly be considered over. He walked carefully through the west wing, checking each room, door, and hallway, ensuring that nothing had been overlooked. Every detail mattered, from locked doors to subtle marks on walls or floors that might indicate tampering. His meticulous approach was essential, for even a small oversight could cause serious problems later. Adrian returned to the security office, where the rest of his team was already gathering to record detailed notes and observations. Reports were being compiled about the day's events, the suspicious behavior of the maintenance worker, the man with the device, and the sequence of events that had led to the emergency buzzer being pressed. Adrian began describing what he had seen with careful precision, the small gestures, the hesitant movements, and the timing of each action. Every note would later be crucial for the investigation, not only to understand what had happened, but also to prevent similar incidents in the future. Investigators soon arrived at the palace, bringing with them expertise in analyzing potential threats. They asked Adrian to walk them through the scene, explaining his observations step by step. He described the shadow near the door, the way the intruders had communicated silently, and the device that had caused concern. His detailed account helped the investigators piece together the intruders' plan, revealing the sophistication behind their actions. It became clear that their intention had been to access sensitive areas without permission, possibly gathering information or causing disruption. Adrian's careful vigilance had prevented what could have been a serious security breach. Throughout the evening, Adrian coordinated with the investigators, ensuring that all necessary information was available. Security footage was reviewed, cross-referenced with his notes, and analyzed for patterns. The palace staff who had interacted with the intruders were interviewed, providing additional context to the situation. Adrian remained calm and focused, guiding the process while observing every detail himself. His years of training and experience allowed him to contribute not only factual observations, but also insights into human behavior and decision-making under pressure. While the investigation continued, the king himself requested a briefing. Adrian presented the facts concisely, explaining the sequence of events, the actions taken by the guards, and the outcome. The king listened intently, recognizing the importance of quick thinking, decisive action, and proper coordination. Adrian's clear explanation allowed the king to understand the seriousness of the situation and the measures that had been taken to maintain safety. The king expressed gratitude, noting that Adrian's instincts and leadership had prevented a potentially dangerous scenario. The staff of the palace were reassured that the situation had been handled professionally and effectively. Visitors were thanked for their patience and informed that the palace was fully secure. Adrian made sure that everyone involved understood the importance of their roles, highlighting how teamwork, awareness, and vigilance had contributed to resolving the incident. The morale among the security team was high, strengthened by the knowledge that their training and discipline had been proven effective in a real-world situation. Adrian spent time reviewing the incident with his team in more detail. They discussed what had gone well and what could be improved in the future. The placement of guards, the speed of communication, and the handling of the intruders were all analyzed to ensure that protocols remained effective. Adrian emphasized the importance of observing small details, trusting instincts, and responding quickly. The team recognized that every member played a crucial role, and that success depended on the combination of training, experience, and calm under pressure. As the night deepened, Adrian finally took a moment to reflect quietly. Standing alone in the palace courtyard, he gazed up at the towers that glowed softly in the moonlight. The day had been long, tense, and demanding, yet the outcome had been successful. The intruders had been captured without harm, the palace was secure, and the staff and visitors could continue their work without fear. Adrian felt a quiet sense of accomplishment, tempered by the knowledge that vigilance was never-ending and that every day could bring new challenges. The following morning, the palace resumed its routine with a renewed sense of awareness. Security measures were reviewed and enhanced based on the lessons learned from the previous day. Adrian oversaw the adjustments, ensuring that all entry points, monitoring systems, and patrol routes were optimized. Staff received additional briefings, reinforcing the importance of reporting unusual behavior and maintaining awareness at all times. The palace operated as smoothly as ever, but there was now an added layer of confidence in its ability to respond to unexpected situations. Adrian was formally recognized by the king in a private ceremony. The king praised his vigilance, quick thinking, and leadership, noting that his actions had ensured the safety of the royal family and the palace staff. He acknowledged the courage it took to act decisively, even under uncertainty, and emphasized the importance of trusting instincts while maintaining discipline. Adrian accepted the recognition humbly, understanding that the day's success had been the result of both his efforts and the coordinated teamwork of the entire security team. Despite the recognition, Adrian remained focused on his duties. He continued to patrol the palace, observing details that others might overlook, and ensuring that all procedures were followed precisely. He knew that security was a continuous responsibility, and that even a moment of inattention could have serious consequences. His mindset, shaped by years of training and experience, balanced calmness with vigilance, allowing him to respond effectively to any situation. In the days following the incident, the investigation continued. Authorities worked to understand the intruders, motives, and the planning behind their actions. Adrian provided testimony and detailed observations, contributing to a comprehensive understanding of the threat. His insights helped identify gaps in planning and potential vulnerabilities, which were then addressed to enhance the palace's security. Every step reinforced the importance of careful observation, coordination, and swift action in maintaining safety. Adrian also took time to mentor newer guards, sharing the lessons learned from the incident. He emphasized the importance of patience, careful observation, and trusting one's instincts. Using the day's events as a teaching example, he explained how even minor details, such as a nervous glance, a hurried movement, or an unusual behavior, could indicate a potential problem. His guidance helped strengthen the skills and awareness of the entire security team, ensuring that future situations could be handled even more effectively. Over the following weeks, the palace gradually returned to normal. Visitors continued to arrive, staff resumed their routines, and the corridors echoed with the familiar sounds of daily activity. Yet there was a renewed sense of confidence among everyone, born from knowing that the security team, under Adrian's guidance, had successfully handled a serious situation. Adrian remained vigilant, patrolling the palace and ensuring that safety protocols were strictly followed. His presence was a reassuring constant, a reminder that the palace's security depended on awareness, discipline, and quick thinking. Reflecting on the experience, Adrian recognized how important it was to remain calm under pressure. The incident had been a test of judgment, training, and leadership. It had demonstrated that even in moments of tension and uncertainty, clear thinking, teamwork, and decisive action could prevent serious consequences. Adrian felt a quiet pride in knowing that his instincts and experience had made a difference, but he also remained humble, understanding that the safety of the palace was a shared responsibility. The intruders, now in custody, faced investigation and legal proceedings. Authorities worked to determine their motivations and the planning behind their actions. Adrian's detailed notes and observations proved invaluable in understanding the incident fully. The palace's response, combined with the thorough investigation, ensured that future threats could be anticipated and prevented more effectively. The events of the day had strengthened security protocols and provided valuable lessons for everyone involved. As the weeks passed, Adrian's routine continued, but the memory of the day remained vivid. He walked the corridors with the same precision and care, but now with an added layer of experience. He knew that danger could appear unexpectedly, but he also knew that careful observation, clear communication, and decisive action could ensure safety. The palace remained secure, and Adrian's role as a protector continued with renewed purpose and confidence. In the end, the incident became a story of vigilance, discipline, and professionalism. Adrian's quick thinking, the coordinated efforts of the security team, and the calm execution of protocol had ensured that the palace and its inhabitants remained safe. Recognition from the king and respect from colleagues reinforced the value of dedication and attention to detail. But beyond recognition, Adrian took pride in knowing that he had fulfilled his duty, protecting the palace and everyone within it with courage, intelligence, and care. The palace stood tall under the morning sun, gleaming in the light as life continued within its walls. Adrian, standing at his post, remained alert yet calm, a steady presence ensuring that the safety of the royal family and the staff was never compromised. The events of the past days had tested his skills, instincts, and leadership, and he had met every challenge with professionalism and resolve. He understood that security was an ongoing responsibility, one that required vigilance, patience, and courage every single day. And so, as the palace continued its daily rhythm, Adrian remained a silent guardian, a vigilant protector whose presence ensured that every visitor, staff member, and member of the royal family could carry on their lives in safety. The emergency had tested the palace's security and Adrian's abilities, and it had proven that careful observation, decisive action, and teamwork could prevent danger and restore peace. Adrian's dedication remained unwavering, a reminder that true guardianship was not about recognition, but about responsibility, preparedness, and the courage to act when needed.